Let's take a look at what we have available to us in Everything Disc Workplace on Catalyst. We're just going to take a look at a little bit of what's there. There's a lot more to it so that you can walk through more of that in detail later on. But I want to give you a little bit of an idea of what you already have available to you. So I've got my screen up and I'm going to be signing in to a demo Catalyst account to walk you through what we actually have available to us. So we're going to go ahead and sign in. And when we sign into Catalyst, one of the first things it's going to take us to is a little bit about our own style. And here I'm using the profile of Matteo, and you can see that Matteo has an SC style. It's a wonderful place to get started by learning a little bit about yourself. We like to talk about emotional intelligence and how we can increase that by becoming more aware of our own tendencies, as well as the tendencies of others, and then choosing our behaviors so that we can all benefit from our interactions. So let's go ahead and take a look inside of this at a little bit about your own style. And I want to point out a few things that are on this page. Up front, there's a little introduction to styles, talking about the four main styles that actually make up DISC: the dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness. And then it's going to step into your profile itself. It's going to give you a little bit of an idea of where you fall on the map, on the circumplex map, and it's going to take you into a story about yourself. You may find that this story is exceptionally accurate, or you may find that there are a few things here that you might not be really sure about. And those are always wonderful things for you to check on. As you look through that story, a couple of key things we always want people remembering when they work with DISC: all styles are valuable. There is not a better or worse style, but all styles at the same time have things that are easier for them to do and things that may take a little bit more energy for us to accomplish. And style is not the only impact on how we interact with each other in the work world. It's one of several impacts, but it is an important impact for us to actually take a look at. Down at the bottom of that page, what you'll find is there's a podcast that actually goes into a great deal of depth around your style. And here we're talking about the specific style, the 12 styles that actually make up the DISC model. So it's past those first four, it's those sub-styles within that quarter of the population, if you will. Okay. So I'm going to step out. I'm going to take a look at our general menu. And what you'll see is in the menu, there is information about your DISC style, your colleague's workplace. In my case, Agile EQ, because we've got that triggered for Matteo as well, and Discology. We'll get into those in just a moment. But I do want to point out there is actually the ability to download a report. For those of you who may have had a history in the past or would like a kind of a PDF report that I might be able to print out if I wanted to about my style, that is available to you. And if you go there, you can click on whatever profile you have available to you, and you can actually get a printout of your report. And it looks very similar to this. In this case, here's Matteo's report, and it's going to walk him through actually a multi-page report that's going to take him through that detail of his own style, as well as styles of others, some other styles that he might want to take a look at so that he can learn from those different styles. Okay. I'm going to flip back to the platform now because that is one thing that we can do, but any kind of a static report about our style limits a little bit of what we can actually do with it. And I think there's a lot more power in the platform. So I want to focus a little bit of time on this. And I'm going to work up through this list here. I want to first take a quick look at Discology. One of the things that is really powerful here is Discology takes us to the background. It takes us to the DISC model. It actually breaks out those 12 styles, talks about the research, the theory, and even the history of DISC, where it comes from, what we're able to do with it. I want to take a quick glance here in the DISC model, and we'll just take a look at this particular section. In the DISC model, there's actually a video up front explaining the basics of the DISC model, a description of the two dimensions that actually make it up for us to be able to break out this behavioral model of personality, and then ideas around the four styles, both what are priorities to them, what they're motivated by, fears, as well as limitations of that style or potential limitations of that style if I don't work on those. So that's just one of the aspects here in that Discology area. Right? Multiple different things there, right? It's the model, it's all 12 styles, it's getting the theory, the research behind it, which I think is really important for us to understand how well-based this is in psychological theory. Okay? I'm going to skip Agile EQ right now because for many of us, we don't actually have that available to us. But again, there's more functionality there. For most of us, we're going to be taking a look at workplace. And in workplace, there are several things that I want to point out really quickly to you. If I go to workplace, it's going to be broken up into 3 different areas. What drives you as an individual, then you and how you might interact with the other 4 main styles. And then there's actually a section on what I can do to build better relationships with others of my own style, as well as with other styles. What are some of the things I can do? What are some hints there? So we're going to take a look quickly at what drives you. Each of us make decisions. We make thousands of decisions a day. A lot of those end up being driven by what we would call our workplace priorities. In this case, for Matteo, those workplace priorities are around accuracy, stability, and support. He also has a 4th in his case, which is actually action. Taking action is one that doesn't tend to come from that initial style, but it's one that he actually expresses more frequently than a lot of other people in his particular area, right? So we can have 3, 4, or 5 priorities, and it gives us a description of what those priorities are, right? What are the things that actually drive us in the decisions that we make, right? It's not that we can't look at the other things. It's just in those snap decisions we're going to make, this is what tends to drive our actions. It's also, if I understand from other people's priorities, it's what enables me to say, am I speaking a language that they can hear? If somebody's trying to work with Matteo and we're not talking about accuracy, stability, support, Matteo's going to have a little bit of a difficult time potentially getting on board because he's concerned about those areas, even if he's not actually thinking about it that way. So we want to be able to understand people's priorities so that we can speak to them in a language that makes sense for them. So that's one way of taking a look at this. It also goes into our motivators and stressors, as well as some strategies that we can use to actually become better in our own areas and communicating. Again, back in workplace, let's take a quick look at those other, at one of the other areas, actually. I'll just look at you and other styles. We talk about emotional intelligence as that ability to understand and manage our own emotions, but it's also that ability to understand and manage other people's emotions and behaviors and reactions. So it's important for us not to just stop at what I can learn about myself, but also what I can learn about others so that we can work better together. And you and other styles is a great place to start with that. It helps break down at the level of those 4 major styles, what's going on for people in that general style, right? So it's at the general style level. So it goes through each of the styles, and it's going to go in that order, D, I, S, and C. But it's going to give you a little bit about how that style may seem to you. Okay, so from your perspective, it's going to tell you a little bit about what tends to motivate people in that style, right? What are the things that are likely to be at the top of their priority list, right? In this case, results, action, and challenge. It's also going to give you actually 4 little video clips that express people in the D style and how they might look at a couple of different situations. It can be really helpful in helping us get a little bit more attuned to picking up people's styles from the way in which they communicate and work with us. And lastly, it's actually going to show some people in your own organization who fall into that style. So it lets us start to say, okay, so from the general, now to a little bit more specific to personal level. We're going to look at this in a little bit more detail in a few minutes, right? And it's going to walk through that for each of the 4 styles. So a great way for us to start, not just learning about ourselves, but starting to learn about the others that we work with and interact with in our workday. And then, as I said, the last place in workplace is actually what are some ideas about building better relationships with those different styles. And that can be a very, very helpful way for us to think about it. But the reality is, although styles get us close, that's still not at the individual level. And the individual level is really how all of our communication really occurs. So one of the things that's most exciting to me about this entire platform is the next area, and it's called your colleagues. And your colleagues is going to break up everybody in your organization who's taken Everything Disc Workplace on Catalyst is going to be in here in the Catalyst platform. And you'll be able to come up as cards like this. Yours is going to look different than mine. Yours will have the names of each of the parties. The demo does not. But it's going to bring out each person in your organization, and you can take a look at them at an individual level. In this case, I'm going to take a look at Stephanie Choi here. And when I bring up Stephanie, what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a page that talks specifically about Stephanie and my interactions with Stephanie, how we work together, the things that work well, the things that may be a little bit more of a challenge for us. So it's going to walk through Stephanie and tell me a little bit about Stephanie. Then it's going to start to compare the two of us and see how we work with one another, both in terms of our map and our priorities, some similarities as well as differences that we have. And then it gets really interesting. It starts to actually compare our tendencies on multiple different psychographic properties that we are also measuring in the DISC workplace process. And I'm going to call out just one or two of these just for fun to help us learn a little bit, because they have an impact on how we work with one another. Like if I were to look at this, I can see that Stephanie is very much on the frank end of this scale, and Matteo is much more on the tactful end. As you can see, the tendencies here, this is a place that could cause us some real friction when we're trying to work with one another. Okay? That's one scale. Another scale that I might pull up would be, oh, let's go with this one because it's another one that actually frequently causes friction in the workplace, our pace. Stephanie is fast paced. She's going after it. She's moving from idea to idea to idea, sometimes maybe even a little bit quicker and may seem a little bit hasty to others. Matteo, on the other hand, may come across as a bit too cautious at times. He wants to make sure that we've got, we've structured it. We're making sure that we've got things under control. We can move through these relatively cleanly. As you can see, this could create, again, a big bit of friction between the two people here. At the bottom of this page are 4 different areas where it's really important for us to understand how we can better work together. When there's tension in terms of connecting with one another, building collaboration, as well as buy-in. All of these things are critical aspects. And it's going to, for each of these, it's going to bring out what are some benefits, roadblocks, as well as tips. I'm going to hit on collaboration real quickly. So if Stephanie and Matteo are working on a project together, it's going to show here are some things that we tend to do well together. Stephanie's improvisation is going to really help us get things moving. She's comfortable working under tight pressure and deadlines. But between the two of us, as we're working together, Matteo's going to want a clear plan, and Stephanie may be more, we'll figure it out as we move. So that's going to cause some friction. She may become frustrated with that cautious pace. So there's some tips at the bottom, things that Matteo can do to make sure that he and Stephanie can work better together. I've done that really quickly. This is a single colleague, but you have this available to you for every colleague who has participated in Catalyst and is on the platform with you. It's a wonderful way for us to actually really build those work relationships that truly work. That gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the stuff that is available to us in Catalyst. In that colleagues area, one last thing I will point out before I step away from this is I also have the ability to actually filter for who are all the people by a different style in my department, as well as to filter by department. One of the things that we're getting a lot of positive feedback from clients about is that ability to do kind of that one-on-one relationship building and understanding what has happened in the past and what can happen in the future if we work on it a little bit. That gives you a quick view of Catalyst. I hope that you've enjoyed this quick demo, and I hope that you spend some time getting into it and getting into the details a lot more, because it matters to you and it matters to the organization that you work with, that you can work more cleanly with one another, you can communicate more succinctly with one another, and then actually you can be a lot happier in the workplace, because a little bit of understanding of myself and an understanding of others enables us to work in a much more positive way with one another. Thank you.